Or not here to shag spiders. It's just a colloquial saying. I shouldn't have said it, but there you go. Now I got it on tape, so happy days. Oh, it's been a big week. I'm passionate about these issues. I'm passionate about housing and I'm passionate about infrastructure. It's been a big week. The Auckland plan change, but also the National Infrastructure Plan, which we commissioned soon after coming into government. We campaigned on it. Now we've got it. It's a pretty sobering look, as it's been widely reported at the state of our infrastructure sector and the state of things in New Zealand, and we've all got to collectively lift our game. So yeah, I'm pretty fired up because I'm passionate about New Zealand. Well, I think it's a good step forward. Politics is always all about compromise on the way through, and it's a good step forward. And the point is this: it's a more politically sustainable plan, and that is important. As I said in my speech, taking people on the journey of housing growth is important because we want to keep moving forward as a country and as a city. So finding that political equilibrium that allows us to move forward is important, and that's what we've done today. We've delivered something that I think will be more enduring politically, but it's also a big step forward economically. It's an advance on the status quo, which is 1.2 million. We had gone to 2 million, now we're down at 1.6, which is the midpoint. So it's an advance on the status quo, and here's the point. It means that we'll have growth in the areas that most people support. I'm yet to find many people who don't think we should build more apartments in the CBD. I'm yet to find people who don't think we should do more around train stations, around busways, around metropolitan centres, around town centres. Most people, not everyone, most people say, yeah, we should build more in those places. Well, that's what the plan will enable, and also that's where people support building more housing, and it's also where the economics make sense to build as well, because that's where the infrastructure is. If people rightly get a bit worked up about density out in the suburbs, fair enough, that's going to be lessened under this plan. It's a government decision. It's gone through Cabinet, and I've been working on my way on it as the responsible minister over the last 2 or 3 months, but it was a Cabinet decision. I actually started the work on this in November, December last year. So before all this stuff blew up in January, when it was a bit of the silly season, everyone got a bit worked up about it, I started the work on this in November, December last year. Oh no, weeks rather than months. We're just working out. We've got to get the bill drafted, and it's not a particularly long process, not a particularly long bill, but we've still got to go through a bill drafting process. There's a bit of backwards and forwards with the council over it as well. So my expectation would be kind of late March, early April in terms of legislation. We'll put it through all stages, not send it to a select committee, which people will probably criticise me for a bit, but the reality is I think people just want this sorted, so we're going to create that certainty. Oh, there's been feedback from all over the place, and I've been pretty upfront about that. I mean, there were 10,000 submissions through the independent hearings process at the back end of last year, November, December. So around 10,000 submissions. MPs get feedback all the time. I've had emails from local board chairs. I've had emails from residents' associations. I've had my colleagues talk to me. I've obviously talked to the Prime Minister about it. I mean, Auckland's a big place and it's a big city, and there's lots of representatives and lots of people who've got a view on everything. And so we've taken all of that into consideration in what we've done. And as the Prime Minister said, we've listened to Aucklanders and we've acted. And I really want to stress that message. We've heard what Aucklanders were saying and we've acted. That's what people expect politicians to do.
Just on those conversations with your colleagues,
yeah.
What was the nature of those conversations? It has been reported that this is a back down. You've got some intense lobbying from some of your Auckland-based colleagues. How were those conversations?
I wouldn't put it like that. As I say, I've been talking to my colleagues throughout this on the way through. As you'd expect, I'm the minister, they're my colleagues, and that's the job of local MPs, is to tell their colleagues what they're hearing from their own constituents. That's why we have local electorate MPs, is to represent those communities and those constituencies and tell ministers what they're hearing. And so I've been talking to MPs on the way through. Also been talking to local board chairs as well. Many of them have been emailing me. It wouldn't be a day goes by I get an email from a residents association, passing on feedback about this and that. The great thing about New Zealand is ministers and MPs are really accessible. I'm in Auckland like almost every week talking to people and listening to people on the ground, and so we've listened to the feedback from Aucklanders and we've taken action. People can call it a back down, people can call it changing your mind. It doesn't actually matter what you call it. Actually, I'm in politics to try and achieve progress. Sometimes achieving progress means changing your mind on things. Sometimes achieving progress means altering your course. That's democracy, that's politics, that's fine, it's completely fine.
And so for all of those,
want to put it like that. I think, as I said, there's some things that I'll reflect on the way through. It's really important to take people with you on the journey of housing growth, and as I said in my speech, that's really important, and I think that's why we're listening and acting.
All of those groups that have messaged you, contacted you, said they didn't like it. If they don't like this news,
well, the number one piece of feedback I got from many people was you've got to change the 2 million target. So it wasn't a target, and the 2 million wasn't really the 2 million, as I said. But we have acted on that. So I'm confident it will meet with their approval. Not everyone is going to be happy. As I said, most people support housing by train stations. There are some people who don't, and my message to them would be: people have got to live somewhere. We've got a housing crisis in this country. There are a bunch of people who say you can't do greenfields because of endless sprawl and car dependency. All the greenies say that. Fair enough, it's a legitimate point of view. And there's a bunch of people who say you can't build by train stations and you can't build the apartments in the CBD because they're ghettos and they're too small and all the rest of it. That's a legitimate viewpoint as well. But if you don't go up and you don't go out, what do? People end up living in cars and under bridges. So we have to build more houses. And the answer is a blend of both. Up and out where it makes sense. That's what the plan we're developing with Auckland will allow us to do. And over time, it will mean we can get on top of this enduring problem of New Zealand politics of housing.
So you say that a lot of the opposition is from people that don't like houses out there in the suburbs, but actually a lot of the opposition came from places like Epsom and Parnell and Ponsonby. You had that meeting from David Seymour, that was in Epsom. Now you're saying that you're sticking by this commitment to the MPSU detail, zoning around train stations and around town centres. Well, a lot of those places are in places like Epsom and Parnell. So, are they going to see a change?
Well, it'll be over to the council as to how that happens, and they've got enormous flexibility now. We are in the process of changing that, and they will have enormous flexibility.
Flexibility around
we're not changing the requirements around the National Policy Statement on Urban Development or the CRL changes we've made. The idea that you should be able to build denser housing near train stations, there's not that many people who disagree with that. There are some people who disagree with it. There's not that many. And as I say, that's where the infrastructure is. It's near the CBD. It's where people want to live. It's where we've built the infrastructure. It's where the wastewater and stormwater capacities are either going in or are soon to go in, and where there's planned investment from Watercare. That's where it's happening. Like Watercare can give you the maps. There's a massive investment going in through Watercare, and we've helped them out with the charter and the various different things we've done around their debt arrangements. Watercare's got a map of where all the investment's going in, and it's in all the areas that we're upzoning, or that will be upzoned. So that's the economically sensible thing to do.
Have you folded to the NIMBYs and the leafy green?
I wouldn't put it like that. As I say, this is a step forward on what we have now. It's a progress on the status quo. We've listened to the views of Aucklanders who are concerned around suburban sprawl or suburban growth in their areas. And we're making sure the growth is focused on the right areas, focused on the CRL, rapid transit, busways, town centres. That's where most people support housing going, and it's also where the economics mean it should go. Yes. In terms of growth? Oh, the CBD, yeah. So look, Auckland went through a process with the CBD a couple of years ago, or last year. It's now operative, so it's in place. It was good, and it did actually unlock a lot of development in the CBD. We've had some feedback that there's a variety of different rules around setbacks and height limits and things like that where you could get more growth, so we're going to do an investigation to do that. It's not going to like radically change the numbers, so it's not like 500,000 more houses you could build in the CBD, but it is material in the sense that the CBD is the economic heart of Auckland, and it's actually about 8%, 9% of New Zealand's GDP is in the CBD here. So like where we're standing in this area really matters. It's a real productivity hub. So getting the CBD right, we think, is really important. So we're going to go through that process. Well, I would never speak for Wayne Brown. That feels like a career-limiting move. But Wayne, well, I won't speak for Wayne, but all I'll say is I've been working with Wayne on this issue for quite some time now, and we have a very constructive and collegial relationship, and I really enjoy working with him.
Maybe you don't have to speak for him, but is this something that you would be happy with if you were the Mayor of Auckland and Wellington government officials came up here and made
Yeah, I'm reluctant to make too many remarks because it's Wayne City, and I acknowledge and respect that. Well, I think, well,
I think the minister's done pretty well. I actually agree with what he said. Good job. We're going to intensify around the railway stations and the bus things, and where it makes sense, where we've got stuff. And it just happen to have a leafy green tree outside as well. That's too bad. It's going to be where it makes sense.
Shall we finish mine and then you can do yours?
Minister, why didn't you expect Auckland Council to get on with the plan and avoid all this toing and throwing around things?
Well, there's a long and complicated story to that, which goes back to the National Policy Statement on Urban Development from 2021. So that essentially required every council to update their plans. Every other council's done that. We did Wellington last year. That was actually equally a kind of robust process. Canterbury, Christchurch, same thing. Auckland hasn't for a variety of reasons. Some of them maybe within their control, others outside their control, like the cyclone. Parliament didn't help through legislating the MDRS in 2021. That complicated matters. Look, the short story is it's been a very complicated process. It's been very frustrating for the council, and it's been frustrating for the government as well. What we now need to do is just put the past behind us, let bygones be bygones, not get, enmeshed in what happened in 2022 or what didn't happen. We need to let all that go, land this plan, leave it over to Auckland, let them get on with it, and find a more prosperous, brighter vista ahead of us.
But what do you say to Wellington residents that are angry that you wouldn't intervene in housing intensification plans in the capital? You're listening to Auckland as one.
Well, actually, in Wellington, there's a number of things I could say about Wellington. No, I mean, Wellington went through a completely different process in the same way that Christchurch went through a different process as well. And actually, the Wellington process has landed in a way that I think everyone is comfortable with. Well, not everyone, but most people are comfortable with. Wellington went through a process of updating their own district plan to implement the National Policy Statement on Urban Development. There were similar debates in Wellington around what the definition of rapid transit is and what areas are. And there's a thing in this morning's paper around a 35 apartment building in Mount Victoria, which a bunch of people are upset about. There are apartments in Mount Victoria already, by the way. So the idea you can't build an apartment building literally 300 metres from the Wellington CBD, I find pretty surprising. But I think Wellington's landed, and we're not intending to revisit it.
Minister, you've said that you don't expect any delays to 2011.
Yes.
The council's got a lot of work to do.
Yes, they do.
Are you confident that the council has the ability to do that, and they give you an assurance on that?
They do have a lot of work to do, and we're very conscious of that and cognizant of that. And there's been quite a lot of backwards and forwards and engagement by central government officials with the council officials at a senior level and an officer level as well. There's a 20-month time frame to get all this done, and we obviously the clock is ticking. And there's a hearings panel process to get underway as well. I'm confident they can do it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that shapes up.
National campaign chair, are you worried about serial protester how Makaraka gate crashing events?
Well, I mean, I suppose it's a public event. I suppose it's not that public, but look, I mean, this is part and parcel of living in a free society, right? I mean, we live in a country in which people can go along to events and confront politicians. I would never want to live in a country where you can't do that. It's a bit frustrating in the sense that I was actually trying to make a point about how we can fix housing for the place he was talking about, and he didn't really want to let me say that, but that's fine. I mean, he's entitled to his views, and might have been slightly more polite to not do it in the middle of a speech. But at the end of the day, would you rather live in a country where you can do that or not? I'd rather live in a country where you can. All right, thanks very much.